Welcome to r/Pettyrevenge, where no revenge is too small. Our next Reddit post is from Not Battle Tested. About a year ago, I was on a short domestic flight that was 3 to 4 hours long. My seat was towards the front of the flight, and I lined up to board when they called for my group. I saw I had a window seat, and as I saw where I was sitting, I noticed an older woman in the aisle seat of my row and who I learned to be her daughter, maybe late 40s, in the middle seat. I let them know I was sitting next to the window and apologized for making them get up so I could sit down. The older lady didn't seem to understand what I was saying at first, and she just kept smiling at me, until her daughter told her to get up because they have to let me get past them. The older woman got up and told me not to worry about it, but her daughter seemed extremely annoyed when she told her to move for me. I didn't mind at all, and apologized once more for being too big to fit past them without them having to get up. And once again, the older lady gave me a big smile and told me not to worry about it. Unfortunately, the daughter was nowhere near as happy as her mother. This is the point where the daughter started to fire off comments about her mother that were directed at me. Pissed off at the fact that since I have a window seat, I should have been on the plane before them so they didn't have such a hassle to get back up after they were already seated, etc. Her mother, though, didn't seem to pay her any mind. I just ignored her tirade. I did feel guilty that I made them, especially the older lady with the big smile, get up for me. But when the daughter saw that her mother was ignoring her, she started to look for anyone around us that she could complain about me to. She even asked the flight attendant for a glass of wine because the silly moron next to her had stressed her out. I put my headphones in and occasionally would pause the movie I was watching on my phone to check if she was still complaining about me. Now, I usually have to put up with comments and slight insults for work. I've been called a lot worse before, and honestly, being called a silly moron is more humorous than anything, so I was just going to let it slide. That's when I noticed as we reached flying altitude that she was trying to see out the window to look down at the city we were leaving. Immediately, I hunched myself forward to block her from seeing out the window and kept watching my movie. Initially, I planned to block the window for about 20 minutes, but 20 became 30, 30 became 45, and I thought, what the heck? I'm going to fully commit to hunching in front of the window for the entire flight. I saw her getting annoyed, but I blasted my volume, held in my pee, skipped the mid-flight snack and drinks, and continued to block the window until we landed. It was definitely worth it. Our next Reddit post is from Peona Lactiflora. When I was about 11 years old, I got a new classmate called Lisa. She quickly got into the group of popular girls in our class. I couldn't have cared less, but without any cause or reason, Lisa was determined to go out of her way to be mean to me. She spread rumors about me that got worse over the years. They escalated from her telling everyone she had seen me pick my nose at age 11 to her telling the whole school I was pregnant at age 15. Meanwhile, I never said a word to her, we never had any contact, and she was just fixated on me for some reason. She also called me slurs and ruined any friendships I was trying to form. She was also an overachiever, but in that book smart way where she was not intelligent at all, but great at standardized tests and stuff. We were in the same English class, not our first language, and she always went above and beyond with her homework. She had gotten stuck at a certain level of English though. No amount of expensive family trips to Australia had changed that. And now, finally, the class was catching up to her. She had obviously been Googling smart-sounding words and Google translating parts of her homework because she could never even begin to pronounce the nonsense she had written down the week before. Me, though? I sucked at every single other class, but English was my best subject, so I made a plan. Lisa had this straw-headed, friendly, but less than clever friend called Hannah. I had never spoken to her, but I knew she always took Lisa's homework and her tests home to learn with them. She didn't copy the homework or answers. She was just really bad at English and wanted to improve by reading the correct solutions. At the beginning of the next school year, I made a leap of faith. I sat next to Hannah, even though Lisa sat next to her on the other side. I made sure Hannah saw every good test score I got and every little smiley face on my assignments. Meanwhile, Lisa was reaching the limits of her dictionary English. The fateful day came. Lisa got her essay back with a C+. I got mine back with an A. I saw the wheels turning within Hannah's head. She turned to me, and after years of giving Lisa an ego boost every single week by asking for her tests, she asked me for mine. Lisa was devastated. I was filled with true and unimaginable bliss. Hannah passed English. OP, I love this story. It's super wholesome. And down in the comments, when someone asked OP for an update, OP clarifies. Lisa seems to work in a bakery in our hometown now. I don't know if she's still a bad person, but I hope she grew up. She's pretty much left me alone since the incident, so that's great. Hannah got through high school by doing her best, and she works for the city now. I moved out of my hometown right after high school, and guess what? I study English Applied Linguistics at university now. Our next Reddit post is from Gecko Mama. When I was 17 or 18 years old, I got my first retail job. I worked at a children's store that does ear piercings. I'm sure you all know which one. I started when I was 17, and shortly after turning 18, I was given a keyholder position. I was thrown into the position with practically no instruction and absolutely no training. I did my best, even though I made mistakes, and was actually doing fairly well. Time passes, I get back from a sleepover, and my mother informs me that while I was gone, my grandfather had passed away. Now, I was scheduled to work just 2 hours after I got the news, so I went in still struggling not to cry my eyes out at any second. The first thing I see is the store manager standing there looking annoyed. She takes me over to a bench out in the middle of the mall and sits with me and starts telling me about all the things I'm doing wrong, the things I hadn't been trained on, while I mostly just blankly stared at her and tried not to cry. I wasn't taking any of the information in at all. I was just too upset. Eventually she noticed and asked what was wrong, and I broke down and started sobbing and told her. I then asked to go home as I didn't think I could work efficiently with this news. She told me absolutely not, and she left, leaving me completely alone in the store. Now, for context, the store sold those stuffed animals called Beanie Boos. They also had giant versions that were about $40 to $50 a piece, I think. It's been years since I worked there. But anyway, some lady walked in and decided to buy 4 of those and was ready to pay, but I told her about a store close by that sold them for a cheaper price. She thanked me and left, having not bought them. So there was my revenge for my boss being rude and uncaring about my grandfather's death. Then, shortly after, I found out from a friend and fellow keyholder that they had not only accused me of stealing a few dollar items, which I had not done, but they'd also accused me of lying about my grandfather's death to get out of trouble. So, in a fit of fury, I called up the manager from before, told her I quit, shut the store down 2 hours early, and went home. I probably cost them about $500 in total sales that day, and I'm proud of it. I know it's not much in the grand scheme of things, they make millions, but it made me feel better. I now have a picture of my grandfather hanging where I used to hang my store keys. And down in the comments, 412 Acing points out that if you close it during the mall's business hours, they probably got fined by the mall too. So it cost them a lot more than $500. Our next Reddit post is from Valpaljoy. To preface this, I have Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. This qualifies me as disabled, and so starting when I first got sick in high school, I was required accommodations by state law. Being disabled was hard and pretty complicated, since after being diagnosed with IBD, I started getting various other health issues ranging from kidney issues to neurological issues to fibromyalgia. My school was very reasonable, and even after missing 3 months when I was first diagnosed, I still got all my credits. The following year I was doing alright. Then, second semester, one of my teachers left and the new one was a complete monster. She refused to teach from the textbook and used Wikipedia instead. She wouldn't give us any tests or practice for the AP exam we were due to take. I was very frustrated and felt unprepared. She absolutely loathed me since I had a little pink pass that allowed me to take my meds in class, go to the nurses needed, and have unlimited restroom breaks. She thought I was a disruption. I would do my best to wait until she was done talking unless I was in too much pain, but she would always roll her eyes and groan at me. One day, I had just gotten back from a doctor's appointment and rushed into her class. I asked to go to the bathroom and said I'd be right back, but she said no. Well, asking is just a formality. All the teachers get emails about the disabled students and know about their accommodations. So I told her, I need to go to the restroom, I'm going. As I left, she groaned something about me always wasting class time and faking it. I picked up my stuff and took it with me. I went to the restroom. Then I went downstairs to my dean's office. I signed in, and when he came out to get me, I told him about her attitude and how she refused to let me use my accommodations, so I came here. I simply told him that they should let her know that she's required to let me leave the class for a reason, and I have a medical paperwork to back that up. He apologized profusely and called the teacher. He told her that he was sending a substitute to her room and he wanted to speak with her. Then he called for a substitute teacher on his walkie-talkie. The teacher arrived at his office looking very displeased, to say the least. He sent me out of the room and I waited in the lobby for, I think, 20 minutes. Once she left, he had her stop at the desk to fill out some paperwork. He brought me back into the office to fill out paperwork too about what had happened. A few other students who heard what had happened came in as a witness, and after that, she was gone for 3 weeks. To my knowledge, she was suspended because she opened them up to a potential lawsuit. Blatantly denying a disabled student for accommodations is against the law here, and the school didn't tolerate it one bit. I will admit I do feel a little bad, but I don't take any flack when it comes to my body and my diseases. So, OP, you basically reverse Uno'd your own teacher. You sent your teacher to the principal's office and got her suspended. Our next Reddit post is from Ren Lobo. One day, back in the late 90s, my mother tells me that she's been getting phone calls between 2 and 4 a.m. every day for a week. She says she hears a strange noise when she answers it. I realize it's a fax machine. So I bring my computer over to try and figure out who the heck it is. I set up the computer to receive the fax and spend the night. In the morning, I pull up the fax on the computer and it's for some paving company. It's a bill for a private school in town. So I call the paving company and tell them they have the wrong number and stop faxing my mother at 3 a.m. The guy gives me attitude and hangs up. I leave my computer in just in case, and the next day it's the same story with the fax. This time though, it was an advertisement. WTF? So I just wait until they're closed for the day and send them a fax back. It says, stop faxing my mother at 3 a.m. with this phone number. Then 200 pages of solid black to make sure and run out all the toner in the cartridge. Never got a call or a fax again. Never mess with my mom. Our next Reddit post is from Oops Poops Toops. I worked for a company that would never pay over 40 hours. Whenever you reached 40 hours, you were done for the week. Not a bad policy, honestly. I'd usually work 10 to 12 hour days and have a 3 or 4 day weekend. That was all fine until the owner's son stepped in. We'll call him Jay. The nepotism was strong with this one. His parents had coddled him and put him in positions he had nowhere near the experience for. Instead of being humble and asking guys who had been around a while what was up, he just came in and acted like the hotshot, God's gift to the world. The issue started when he started taking contracts that involved switching over power from one system to another at large grocery stores. To keep it from getting technical, this mainly involved the store's frontline point of sale systems. Employees working 40 hours and stopping when we reached our limit was no longer viable. Sometimes we'd have to work 10 hours of overtime, which the managers would say wasn't approved and wouldn't pay. I tried bringing it up to Jay, but he made comments about how it was because we were screwing around and just wanted to milk the jobs. The truth was, once changeover started, you couldn't stop working until done. The worst thing that could happen was if the point of sale stations were down when it was opening time. Work would start at 9 p.m. and sometimes end at 7 to 8 a.m. with almost always no breaks or lunch. After doing 3 changeovers and working overtime without getting paid for it, I'd finally had enough. I talked to Jay and told him that he needs to come out for a night and see what we're up against. He flat out refused. Jay told me to stop pissing and moaning and that the work wasn't that difficult. He said he could do it in half the time I could. That was my breaking point. I devised my plan for later that night. The pre-con meeting started at 8 p.m. Work started at 9 p.m. Removing the wiring in old boxes started right away and was usually done by 11 p.m. 11 p.m. also happened to be the time I'd reach my 40 hours for the week. Jay won't pay me overtime, well then, I can't work. He failed to understand that this isn't my hobby. At 11:15, when the demo was done, I packed up my tools and quietly slipped out the door. I turned off my company phone and dropped my van off at the shop. I went home and enjoyed a nice week off before starting my new job. Through the grapevine, I heard that employees started blowing up Jay's phone once he realized I wasn't coming back. Jay showed up and apparently had it all finished by 3 p.m. Unfortunately for Jay, the contract stated that any delays on the POS station would incur back charges to the company to pay for lost sales. In the end, I got a new job and a raise. The company had to pay $12,000 in lost revenue to the store. They lost the contract, and Jay had to deal with the fallout for about 12 hours. May not be the best story, but it's mine. That was r/Pettyrevenge, and if you like this video, then check out my Patreon where I publish extra videos. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.